Hi, it's Maneesh from Ashworth Estate Agents here. Hope you're all keeping safe and well and enjoying the lovely sunny weather that we've been having recently. Understandably, a lot of people are anxious with everything that's going on. A lot of people are anxious about what's going to happen to house prices in the local area over the next few months and for the rest of 2020. And I wanted to talk today about what's likely to happen or may happen to prices in the local area, certainly the ones that we cover, Brentwood, Billericay, Chelmsford, Gidea Park, Upminster and Wickford. First of all, I want to talk about, in terms of where prices might go, I want to talk about three different things. The first is I want to talk about what happened to prices in 2008 in the global financial crisis, or what's commonly called the credit crunch. I'm also going to talk about life after Brexit, now that we've finally left Europe. And also I'm going to share with you the latest price trends, the latest data that's just come out in various towns in the Essex area to tell you what's actually been happening, the real hard data, so you can have a look for yourself and decide. So first of all, let's talk about why prices fell in 2008 in what was called the credit crunch. The cause, obviously, as it was called a global financial crisis, the cause was economic circumstances back then. Mortgages in particular had very tight restrictions on lending, and the base rate, the Bank of England rate, was 5%, so much, much higher than it is right now. So mortgage rates would have probably been around 6 to 7%. Prices started to fall, and that resulted then in negative equity and repossessions, which spiraled into more price falls and negative equity and repossessions. The situation now in 2020 is obviously very different. This is a health crisis. It's a coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, as you all know. But the difference is that mortgages are actually freely available. And also the interest rates have been the lowest they've been since 1975. We've got historically very low interest rates, and that's before the Bank of England did the emergency rate cut recently from 0.75 to 0.1%. So the point is that borrowing is cheaper than ever. So that's very different to what it was sort of just over 10 years ago. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. Moving on to supply, we saw, and again, if you've watched my monthly updates, you would have heard me say this a few times. We saw, especially at the end of last year, that new properties, or properties coming to the market, were actually down by about 16%. So, sellers held back with all the uncertainty over Brexit and whether it was actually going to happen after it had been delayed already. And what we also saw, and this actually really surprised us, and I think would have surprised a lot of people, is though that the sellers were actually unwilling to reduce their prices, even though it was actually taking longer and longer for properties to sell. So we saw that prices were sort of what we would call sticky downwards. So they weren't moving down. People were taking the attitude that if I don't get what I want for my house, I'll just take it off the market and wait for Brexit to happen. And of course, Brexit did finally happen. So then moving on to demand, demand has been pent up since the referendum in 2016. And it finally started being released with the decisive election result. Rightmove actually reported that they had 150 million views in February, their busiest month ever. Just to put that into perspective, Rightmove's been going for over 10 years. So literally, this is the busiest Rightmove has ever seen for over 10 years. And prices of new launches, new properties coming to the market was actually up 2.3% in January, which is quite a significant increase in just 1 month. At Ashworth, we certainly saw properties receiving multiple offers. We even had offers coming in over the asking price. And this is for very mid-priced family type homes. These are sort of very bread and butter homes, but generating really, really good interest. So clearly buyers coming back to the market. I also mentioned I was going to share with you the latest sold prices. So they've just been released. The latest prices that we have from Land Registry for the year to February, because obviously Land Registry tends to lag 1 or 2 months behind like the live data, is that we've seen that Brentwood, Billericay and Wickford, for example, have held up very well. Price have held firm and flat for the year. So that's obviously a good sign. Upminster was up 2% year on year. Prices in Chelmsford were up 5% year on year. And Gidea Park smashed out the park 11% up year on year. So you can already see that the price trajectory had started going upwards toward the tail end, early part of this year with the completed sales. And it was just sort of suddenly held into lockdown by the coronavirus. Looking forward then, what's likely to happen? So what's very interesting is we've seen already in New Zealand, for example, which recently had its lockdown lifted, the activity has returned back to the property market. And they're certainly seeing quite a lot of activity happening in New Zealand. I've been speaking to sort of agents there and seeing what's been going on. And that's been quite sort of, interesting and very promising that they were seeing that basically transactions are returning back to the market. I did hear one leading agent in London yesterday, I think it was, mentioned that he expects prices in London to go down probably 10% before they start going back up. I think that's possible, but I think London's a very international market. It tends to be much more sort of macroeconomically focused and with a lot of international buyers. Whereas I think in our areas in Essex, which are obviously sort of commuter areas and towns just outside London, most of them, I think price is going to be quite flat because of the reasons I mentioned. I think supply is still very limited. I don't see many sellers rushing to bring their properties on the market. And obviously it'll take a few months for a whole lockdown and social distancing to sort of unwind. And in that time, I think that there will be a sort of steady trickle back to the market and price will remain flat. But I do see them resuming their upward trajectory by the end of the year as people get more and more comfortable and sort of normal life, if you like, resumes. And also I'd just like to mention that please do get in touch if you'd like some advice during this time. We are still working, albeit from home. And, if you'd like to know how prices on your road, for example, specifically have been affected, or when's a good time to buy or sell, because I can imagine that's a question a lot of you probably have, is now a good time to put your house on the market? Should we delay? Should we wait till the end of the year? Should we wait till 2021 even? We are offering up-to-date valuations by video. We've been doing those with a few people recently. They've been very successful, very useful. And for example, if you've just spent a lot of money, extending your property, putting in a new kitchen, why not find out what your house might be worth now? Because I think it's a great time to be getting prepared for when the market does return. And it's only going to take a couple of months, I think, before you start seeing the activity coming back. And we're hoping to find out in the next few weeks if we're actually going to be able to resume viewings, for example, wearing protective clothing or protective gear as well. But that's something also that we're expecting an announcement for very, very soon. We've heard sort of rumblings in the industry press already. I know they've been talking to their colleagues in the US. So again, I don't think it's going to be very long before the property market does come back. And I just want to reiterate, we're not just here to help you move, but also to advise and assure you of your biggest asset. So please like our Facebook page, put any questions or comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys and get in touch. I'm just going to put my number up right now. There you go. That's my contact number. Otherwise, you can contact me here on Facebook and hopefully look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care of yourselves.